For most of my life growing up, I had very little money. If I was lucky, maybe once every few months at best, I could talk my dear old ma into getting me a single new game. This led to me playing what little I did have 2 million times over, in addition to creating an odd fascination with games based on demo discs and digital download demos you could find in the PS3 and Xbox 360 storefronts. In fact, I'd argue I know a good bit of rather obscure games almost entirely because of that. It opened my eyes to a lot of stuff that I would otherwise just ignore and most people didn't even notice. Occasionally, though, from the depths of these memories, I'll be hit with a wave of nostalgia over the jankiest, stankiest, and most busted-ass games imaginable. Thus enters the game that this video is titled for, about a series of days that are particularly dark, or the darkest of days, if you will. This game is like a fever dream. You know, the kind of thing you would dream up after taking one too many bong rips and a whole package of whippets? For the longest time, I honestly thought I just made this shit up, to be honest with you. I didn't even think it was a real video game, and even now, I'm not sure how or why I even remembered it as much as I do. I played the demo way back in the day on the Xbox 360, and I remember thinking just how amazing the graphics looked, even loving the whole setup and premise like nothing else. This thing, for some reason, made an impression on child me. I don't know why, I just thought this game looked sweet, man. That acceleration, at the time, it seemed so cool, and now I look at it and holy shit, it looks horrible. I don't know, man, at the time it just looked really cool. I thought it looked like realistic as hell. You know, this was one of the first games I ever played and thought to myself, wow, video game graphics can't get better than this. Of course, absolute baby child that I was, I had no money at the time, and thus I never got past the first 2 stages included in the demo, and I forgot about it over time. Its memory soon fading from my mind. Fast forward now and I'm an adult. I can make my own bad decisions. I can put as much poison as I want into my body and nobody can stop me, not even you. Why not play the video game I had once pined for? A video game I had once looked at and thought, wow, this really is a video game. As such, I figured, why the hell not? I'll buy it at... It's not legally available on any platform at the moment. Well, I guess that means I can't play it. Sorry about that, guys. I'm gonna have to wrap up the video here. It looks like since it's no longer available legally to purchase, I can't play it for you. Unless... Alright, so getting that installed was a piece of cake, and maybe most surprisingly, it's one of the better running games I've ever had the pleasure of playing on this channel. Normally, with games like this, they tend to crash at random or have a list of issues I need to patch before it even runs right, if it runs at all. But in this particular case, it ran smoother than some AAA games I've played in the last few months. I didn't encounter any bugs, frame rate issues, save errors, visual glitches, or anything else that really hindered the experience. I don't know, man, it's bizarre considering I had to get this thing from the depths of the internet off a single Russian cedar still fighting that good fight. God bless you, by the way, whoever you are, you've saved this channel single-handedly. However, what I do not welcome is the aforementioned weird acceleration that occurs whenever I turn in any particular direction. It's a feature I find myself unable to disable, despite my many fevered attempts, and it, along with the weird FOV, takes some getting used to. I mean, this thing just looks like Vaseline whenever you look in any direction, even remotely quickly. In general, I think that sets the mood for this game rather well. A nice coating of skunk on top of what are some pretty damn fun ideas made by a studio of like 10 people who, according to stories at least, had to move 3 separate times during development due to flooding. The fact that this game was not only released, but released in such a remarkably stable and well put together state is, in my opinion, nothing short of a miracle, and a testament to the talent on the team. Good job, guys, for real. It kicks ass, even if nobody really appreciated it at the time like it deserved. But enough of that. We have a video to game. You take the role of Alexander Morris, a fighter in the Civil War saved from your demise and recruited by a futuristic, cool team of future fighters set on fixing the timeline that is currently falling apart. Or, so you're told at least. Here, you're given the choice of different eras in history to serve as a backdrop to different combat scenarios throughout the game, some of which even allow you to wield high-tech future weapons like a badass shotgun or a full-auto assault rifle with a 120 mag clip and auto-aim, or this missile launcher that rains down hellfire on any and all targets below it. And let's not forget the death ray that you get towards the end of the game, which just annihilates anything you point it at instantly. This thing is badass. Moments like these where you use this badass tech to kick ass and take names are some of the highlights of what is otherwise a pretty bog-standard war shooter in different eras. Not to say that that isn't without its charm, but these weapons do actually do quite a lot to make this game feel more special than it would otherwise. Not to say that that doesn't mean these standard weapons are any less unique. In fact, most of them are pretty fun and era appropriate. In the end, it ends up being this really nice balance of old and new weapons and technology that end up making for a rather fun gameplay experience for a multitude of reasons. For one thing, due to the unique setting the game has, it's actually able to do things like put the player in a Civil War scenario with only a musket that takes a long time to reload. This makes you be much more careful with each and every shot as a consequence, and in my case, it meant I often missed my target and had to reload while under heavy fire because I suck shit at video games. It takes these battles and settings that we don't generally see in games, and it allows us to play them out for the first time in, well, maybe ever. If it does a good job is up for debate, but I still think it's pretty admirable, especially for the time. I mean, hell, up until recently, this was one of the only games I can think of that tackles some of these settings and actually uses things like musket rifles without modernizing them. It has Civil War settings, World War I settings, Pompeii at one point. I mean, man, these things suck and take ages to load, as God intended. Plus, it means when the game does do something like throw a modern rifle in the mix, it feels like that much more of an upgrade, giving you a great appreciation for something as simple as a fully automatic rifle when you find one. I mean, look, most modern shooters will give you a fully automatic rifle pretty early on, and you're trained to just kind of be like, sweet, and then move on. But with this, just a single assault rifle is almost enough to turn the tide of an entire battle. It makes it feel so much more useful, so much more badass when you actually get one, that it ends up being much more valuable to the player when they do appear. It's a unique feeling that I've never really felt outside of this game. You have these weapons that are often like single shot or weapons that don't shoot that well, and the moment you get something that's actually insanely accurate and does shoot fully automatic, it's like, wow man, that kicks ass. However, as much as I dig the gameplay, don't get me wrong, the settings themselves are also impressive. They're rather surprising at times with their size and the amount of characters on screen at any given particular moment, though even I must admit that some of them can get a bit samey feeling at times. You can only make so many smoothed out valleys that feel different, you know?
any good cold Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill?
Oh, how nice.
Great.
Boone's Farm, Strawberry Hill. It captures the taste of fresh strawberries. Now, doesn't that wine taste good?
You're right, Grandma.
Precious.
Where'd you go?
Look, she left this Strawberry Hill.
One sip, and it's Strawberry Hill forever.
Will you look at that, boys?
However, each location still does its best to provide a feeling of ambiance and can manage to suck you in surprisingly well to its world. Moments like standing in a firing line and shooting down enemy troops in the American Civil War, or rushing Dead Man's Land in World War I with your fellow troops have a certain weight and carnage to them that makes this almost as memorable to me as any big-budget action scene in modern shooters. Sure, this game might lack in incredibly high-quality animation and textures, but for the time it was, and honestly still is, pretty good looking, if a bit sparsely populated outside of the field of battle. In a way, however, at least for me, I don't mind it. Between these huge conflicts and bombastic battles, there's moments of quiet as you make your way across the battlefields, occasionally running into quick conflicts on the road that end just as quickly as they start, while you wander through forests and fields that are downright lovely to look at times. Between the occasional sound of gunfire in the distance and the troops making their snide remarks about the other side, it creates a really believable and honestly somewhat comfy environment when you aren't taking fire and blowing a hole through the enemy side. I don't know, man, it's weird to call a war zone comfy, but this game, I don't know, it puts me into a headspace, alright? I just feel calm here. Don't think too poorly of the story itself, though. It's actually surprisingly much better than I expected, even going so far as to play with your expectations, and at one point even changing the entire flow of gameplay with a rather long, non-combat sequence set inside of a concentration camp after you're caught in a mission during World War II. The story evolves from a rather run-of-the-mill time travel tale about trying to repair history to instead something with an actual plot that has twists and turns, an entire enemy faction of time travelers being revealed at one point that really muddies the waters, for instance, as well as multiple instances of questioning the very validity of your mission itself and if history can even be changed. Fleshed out a bit more, the conflicts between factions and the morality of trying to repair a damaged timeline rather than try to change it is ever so lightly touched upon by the end of the game in a way that really leaves me wanting more of it, something that's always a good sign. Unfortunately for us, while the game sets up a sequel exploring these exact elements with far more depth and weight than it was sadly able to at the time, it's something we'll likely never see as the company went on to other things after this title. It's a shame, really. There's so much interesting ideas and concepts introduced that I genuinely wish the team could have been more able to pull it together just a bit more to make a product that more people could have enjoyed. Then again, maybe it was destined to fail. Maybe there really is no reality in which it possibly could have succeeded. Either way, I'll be hoping for it at least, as the experience itself is really one I recommend. If you can find a version of it on PC, that is. All in all, it ends up being a package I really enjoy. I don't know, man, I liked it. I know it's flawed, but I still liked it. Just like I know Taco Bell is slowly killing me, and that this Monster Energy I'm drinking is pure poison. Sometimes it's okay to like things that are bad for you. sometimes bad things are actually good. I do genuinely recommend checking this bad boy out though, for real, and if for nothing else, then just because of the fact it throws so much shit at the wall and has so much ambition that it's genuinely inspiring. I don't know if it's something I'd replay a ton, as the lack of multiplayer and other modes is definitely noticeable, but it's still worth a full sit down. I mean, it took me a bit less than 10 hours to play through the whole thing, so it's not really like a time commitment. Finding it might prove to be the hardest part, but if you take to the high seas, it's not too bad at least. Just look out for sharks in the water. If you do manage to get your hands on a copy though, it's well worth blowing through in an afternoon. The start can be a bit slow, but by the end I was genuinely invested. The gameplay feels good despite everything, and while there are certain environments that are worse, certain large open areas in particular that I can think of where you're getting shot by people you can't identify were particularly annoying, but when that's not happening, when the game is working as intended, when everything feels great, then man, it feels like a fun video game, and I genuinely enjoyed almost all of it. The active reload system that it has is very fun and also kind of ahead of its time a little bit. I don't remember when Gears of War happened, man. I feel like it was sometime after this. This was like, what, 2008 or something? Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But the point is that the gameplay feels fun. It feels great to one-shot a dude with a musket, or to take out a group that you find along the path between battles. It's just really a blast when everything's working, and especially like when I mentioned you get those power weapons and you're just mowing dudes down like it's nothing. Oh man, it feels great. It feels genuinely like you give the player a machine gun and they can turn the tide of an entire battle, and there's nothing like that in any other game that I can think of where just something so simple makes the player feel all the more powerful. All in all, I'd explain the feeling of playing Darkest of Days as like watching a movie that cuts off in the final act. It's sweet, and what is there is cool, but man, the ideas it was having towards the end, the things it was just starting to introduce, seemed so incredibly interesting that I really wish we could have seen more. The idea of the morality behind choosing to preserve a fractured timeline instead of change it to something better is fascinating, and that's a conversation I would love to see. There is so much of human history that is genuinely so shitty that going back into the past to change it might make more sense than just dealing with history being shit. So in a way, it's like, I don't know, man, I kind of dig that idea. I wish it could have been explored more, but it wasn't able to. All in all, I gotta say I enjoyed the game, and I think if you pick it up, you'd probably enjoy it too. It's a lot more interesting than it might seem at first. It comes off as just kind of a generic war shooter, and what it ends up being is kind of a blast. It feels almost like waking up at 3 a.m. where you left the History Channel on, and all of a sudden some shit about ancient aliens is playing, you know? It's like that, but in game form, and honestly, I dig it. I really dig it. As for the team, I did look into them, as I always do with games like this. I find getting to learn about the teams that made a game is often as interesting, if not more interesting, than playing the game itself. However, in a lot of cases with these small, lesser known and lesser appreciated titles, the company generally has a very short life, often dissolving sometime after releasing a few more titles that bomb. However, in this case, it's something of an interesting story, as 8 Monkey Studios, before making video games, were already the creators of a popular 3D modeling and rendering software called Marmoset Toolbag, in addition to creating the less popular Marmoset Engine. After the release of Darkest of Days, the company would go on to never release a video game again, which is a real shame and loss for all of humanity if you ask me. Instead, choosing to focus on their software and rendering engine in a move that probably totally actually prevented the company from entirely just dissolving. Which, you know, that's cool and all, but I'd dig a sequel. Make it for me, like one dude. Make the sequel just for me. While I'm not a 3D artist, it does seem that they have their own niche in the marketplace and still exist to this day under the name Marmoset. So I mean, hey, a happy-ish ending for once. At the very least, this is one story that doesn't end in an entire development team being dissolved, so I'll take my wins where I can. Wherever the devs are now, either still staying with the company or moving on, I genuinely wish the best for them, and who knows? Maybe one day, somebody on the team might even be willing to step forward and tell tales from the trenches of this strange little gem's development. For now, though, that's it from me. I know this was a bit shorter than expected, but hey man, what can you do? This game is cool. That's all I really have to say about it. Just play it if you can. Just be warned, you might have to take to the high seas to find it, but if you are able to, then great. I believe it also has an Xbox 360 port that is pretty good, though from my understanding, PC is the exact version that the devs intended. Anyway, with that, I guess it's time to go, so adios gamers, and stay safe out there, gamer ghouls. Hi there, welcome to the post-show. I guess this is just me talking to you, mono a mono, or whatever, but yeah, sorry this game had some trouble getting a video made about it. It took a lot longer than I kind of wanted. If you don't know what's up, I recommend you check out the most recent State of Demenza'S address, where I kind of talk about a few things, but basically the long and short of it is that the original Fast and Furious video is no longer happening, and I had to basically start production freshly from scratch, so this is what I put out in that time. I promise there will be more. This is maybe a little bit shorter of a video than you're used to seeing from me, but trust me, I'm working on some stuff. The next thing I plan to cover is I'm going to talk about Sergei Nozkov's work. He's the guy who made 35mm. I'm going to revisit 35mm and a lot more of his work, and I'm just going to talk about everything all at once, so it'll be a little bit longer of a video. I'm not sure how much longer yet, but I'll let you guys know once I get on that. For now, I think it's best if I just put this thing out, so thank you to all the Patreons that have supported me. You guys are fantastic, and if you do wish to support me on Patreon, then please do. You'll get some behind-the-scenes stuff, some updates and stuff that the rest of these peasants don't get, and plus you also get access to the Demenza'S Gate Discord. So, you know, pretty cool stuff overall. But yeah, I mentioned this before, but my plan here going forward is at least one video a month. If I manage to do more than that, fantastic, and I'm hoping that this is maybe the start of me changing my format a little bit. This is more of a video that is kind of small and just made to bring attention to a game I really like, instead of going super in-depth and talking about the plot or anything to its conclusion, because I find that to be a little bit boring. I kind of just want to give people an imprint or vibe about something that I like, so hopefully you don't mind the shortness and the brevity that is here. So anyway, before this thing becomes like 40 minutes for no reason, I'm gonna go ahead and just close this off. So once again, stay safe out there, gamer ghouls, and hopefully we'll get a chance to game again soon.